I'm sitting in my car outside a house I've never seen before, but apparently I live here. My name is Elena, I'm 32, and 3 hours ago I discovered that my identical twin sister has been systematically stealing pieces of my identity for the past 5 years. It started when I got a call from a dentist's office in Portland. I live in Seattle. Ms. Vasquez, you missed your appointment yesterday. We'll need to reschedule your root canal. I think you have the wrong number. I don't have any dental appointments and I've never been to Portland. This is Elena Vasquez, correct? Date of birth, March 15th, 1992. My blood went cold. That was my exact information. Ma'am, our records show you've been a patient here for 3 years. You had a cleaning in January. I hung up and immediately called my twin sister, Sophia. We'd grown up together but had a falling out 5 years ago over a guy. Typical twin drama. We barely spoke anymore, maybe a text on birthdays. Sophia didn't answer. She never answered anymore. But that dentist call nagged at me all day. That evening, I did something I'd never done before. I Googled my own name. The results made me dizzy. There was my LinkedIn profile, except it wasn't mine. It showed Elena Vasquez working as a senior marketing director at a firm in Portland, a position I'd applied for 3 years ago but never gotten. The profile had my photo, my education, but work experience I'd never had. There was my Instagram account, except it wasn't mine either. The photos showed me living in a beautiful loft apartment, traveling to Europe, wearing designer clothes I'd never owned. The captions were written in my voice, but describing a life I'd never lived. There was my wedding announcement in the Portland Tribune from 2 years ago. Elena Vasquez marrying David Chen in an intimate ceremony at Powell Gardens. I stared at the wedding photo. It was definitely me in that dress, smiling next to a handsome Asian man I'd never met in my life. Except it wasn't me, it was Sophia. My identical twin sister had been living as me in Portland while I struggled as a part-time administrative assistant in Seattle. I called in sick to work the next morning and drove to Portland. The address on the LinkedIn profile led me to a trendy neighborhood I could never afford. I parked across from a converted warehouse building and waited. At 8:30 a.m., I watched myself leave the building. Sophia walked out wearing a tailored blazer and designer heels, carrying a leather briefcase that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She looked like the successful version of me I'd always dreamed of becoming. She got into a silver BMW, the same car I'd test-driven once but couldn't afford, and drove away. I followed her to a gleaming office building downtown. Through the lobby windows, I watched her greet people who called her Elena and shake hands with important-looking executives. This was insane. My sister was literally living my life, but better. I waited in the parking garage until she came out for lunch. When she sat down at an upscale cafe, I walked over to her table. "Hello, Elena," I said, using her real name. Sophia looked up and nearly choked on her salad. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Identical faces, identical bone structure, but she looked polished and confident while I felt frumpy and tired. "What are you doing here?" she whispered. "I could ask you the same thing, except I know what you're doing here. You're being me." Sophia glanced around nervously. "I don't know what you're talking about." I sat down across from her. Elena Vasquez, Senior Marketing Director. Elena Vasquez, who lives in the converted warehouse loft. Elena Vasquez, who married David Chen. Sophia's face went white. "How did you—" "The dentist called, about my root canal, in Portland, where I've apparently been a patient for 3 years. Sophia closed her eyes. "Elena, I can explain. You'd better, and use my real name while you do it." She looked around the cafe again, then leaned forward. "It started as an accident. 5 years ago, after our fight, I moved to Portland. I was applying for jobs, and there was this one application where I accidentally typed Elena instead of Sophia in the name field." "Accidentally?" "It was! But then they called me for an interview, and I thought, what's the harm? They'd never know. So I went." "And got the job?" "I got the job. Elena, I was desperate. I'd been unemployed for 8 months. I was about to lose my apartment. This job saved my life." I stared at her. "So you stole my identity to get it?" "I borrowed your identity, and then things just snowballed." "Snowballed into marriage?"